My name is Ted Sutton. I'm a current law student at the University of Wyoming, and currently I'm working at Corporate Direct this summer as an incorporation specialist. Today I'm here with Rich Dad Advisor, attorney, and my dad, Garrett Sutton. Today we're joined by an up-and-coming real estate educator and recent author of Skip the Flip, Hayden Crabtree. Hayden, it's a pleasure to have you on.
What's up? Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no worries. It's crazy. A year ago we met on the Real Estate Guys cruise, and now all of a sudden you're an author. You're only 23 years old, so you're way ahead of the game. I mean, you didn't.
Well, here's your book, right? And so, Skip the Flip. I've read. I enjoyed it. I've got to say, I wrote this book, Loopholes, when I was twice your age. So, Hayden, congratulations. You and I are in the same category on Amazon, and we're both in the top 10. So for you at your age to do this is just, I think, terrific. So congratulations on Skip the Flip.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that what makes us in our books be in the top 10 is we don't try to overwhelm people with information they can't understand, but really both myself and you, we tried to write something that people could actually apply in their own life and take something away from rather than just, textbook material of, how does this even impact me? So that was really my goal. And, I'm pretty sure it's your goal as well to give people actionable advice. And that's why people like it.
Well, Robert Kiyosaki calls it hide the ball. When people write at a high level and they're not bringing it down to a clear, understandable level, they're hiding the ball. And in our books, I especially try and use examples, stories in order to explain legal concepts. So instead of hiding the ball, we're putting everything out there so people can clearly understand it.
Cut the ball in half, open it up, and show everybody how it's made, right?
Right.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, like we mentioned, you're 23 and you already have a book out there. What ultimately drove you to publish this book? And were there any people in particular who had an influence on you before you published this book?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I get the question all the time, how long did it take you to write the book? And I got to be real honest, from the time that it went from, hey, I need to write a book, to the time that, all 212 pages were in a Google Doc or Word, it was about 18 hours. The book just absolutely poured out of me because I had so much to say, and there's still a lot more to say, but really what drove me, and I'm sure you guys get this all the time, is people see that I'm in real estate. They want to learn about real estate. They maybe they don't like their job, or maybe they're looking for a way to supplement their retirement or whatever it is. And the main question that I get is people my age or even older, up to people my parents' age, come to me and say, hey, it looks like you're killing it in real estate. I want to get started. I was on HGTV the other night and I saw this thing. They were talking about flipping this house. And I think that that's how I'm going to get started. And I just, and my eyes just go like this and I go, all right, listen, you need to skip the flip. And as I start to go into the process of telling people, in who I learned from mainly, obviously, is Robert Kiyosaki. My journey got started after I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I knew that I had to see cash flowing assets in my life. And what the majority of people don't understand, they don't even recognize the difference between cash flowing, long-term tax benefit asset and a house flip that carries a lot of risk, a lot of hidden fees, and it's more of an active job. So that's why I wrote the book, Skip the Flip, and it goes through all the different details and benefits. You can have a single house, and depending on how you position your business model, it can provide a bunch of tax benefits, or it can actually tax you heavily. It can provide you long-term wealth and debt pay down and using debt as your friend, or it can become a liability that is the biggest expense in your life. So that's why I really wanted to write the book to just spread that out. It's, I think I put it through one of those things where it tests at what reading level is it. And I think what people like so much is that my book is I think it's a 7th grade reading level. So anyone can understand it, down to, I'd given myself this book as a freshman in high school, and it still would have had a super huge impact as someone who's 50 years old and, doesn't know about real estate, but wants to learn.
Right. So I know you mentioned a lot about the tax advantages with buying and holding as opposed to flipping. Are there any specific tax advantages that you think more people should utilize when investing in real estate?
If we were to go out right now on the street, us three, and we were to walk up to a Whole Foods or whatever it is and ask the first 10 people who walk out of the door on the way back to the car, And we said, hey, what is depreciation? What does depreciation mean in your life? All of them are going to turn around and look at the cars in the parking lot and go, that's what happens when you drive one of those new ones off the lot, you know? And it's just like you bang your head against the wall because there's these monster benefits out there that aren't just for the super wealthy people. I mean, everyday people like you and I and, you know, our neighbors and everything, there's this word called depreciation that almost no one knows about. When I wrote this book, I actually gave it to my mom, and my mom's never done anything in real estate before. And she texted me after she had read my book. She goes, is this depreciation thing real? It sounds like it should be a secret and no one should know about it. And is it illegal? And I just, you know, it's these things that as you learn and gain an education in real estate, why don't they teach this in school? You know, so from an everyday person getting into real estate, completely eliminate your tax bill, reinvest all that money back into real estate. It's an exponential snowball. Now, for existing real estate investors, I mean, I talk to people all the time who've been in real estate for 10 years and never heard of accelerated depreciation. They've heard of depreciation, but they didn't know they can take that 27, 30 years of depreciation and melt it down into such a short time frame. So I think there's tons of tax benefits. There's probably tax benefits I don't know about, you know, that CPAs can tell me about. That's why I like to rely on my CPAs heavily to teach me those things and keep me up to date with all the current stuff, especially in the rapidly changing world we live in. But absolutely, there's things that people just don't know about and they need to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you need a team, and a good CPA on your team, a good asset protection attorney on your team is great. You don't have to know everything, but I think in Skip the Flip, you've brought the key elements into play. And a lot of people do want to just start out with a flip, but your book has them reconsider that. So, well, what's your next question, Ted?
Yeah, so we talk specifically about skipping the flip. And then you mentioned two different types of investments, commercial and residential. In your book, you talk about how you view commercial real estate more favorably than residential. So what are the main reasons for why you favor commercial over residential?
You know, and I try to dispel it extremely clearly in the book is that real estate is not this beast that you have to have degrees and licenses. And, you know, you don't have to have a war chest full of cash in order to be able to take down real estate. And it's hard for people to conceptualize, I'm going to go buy this shopping center and I'm going to own the building that the Walmart owns their own stuff. But, you know, I'm going to own this shopping center and I'm going to own this, you know, this 200 unit monster apartment complex, things like that. And people never really wrap their head around it. So where most people start whenever they think of real estate investing is the simplest item, which is a one-door home that people live in. And I think it's a great place to get started. I mean, residential has a lot better loan terms for the most part. So it's a lot easier to get into, loan money down, stuff like that. But where most people fail to make the leap into is that they think that going from a house to a 20-unit apartment complex to a 200-unit apartment complex is totally different ballgame. And the reality is the same ballgame. You know, it's just a lot bigger numbers. A lot of people say, you know, you need a lot more experience, you need a lot more this, a lot more that. But in reality, it's the same exact business plan and you're going to be spending the same amount of time, but your profits and your earnings and your depreciation, your tax benefits are all going to be 10, 20, 30x bigger. And in addition, going back, one thing that I really liked, you know, and kind of learned this the hard way is whenever you have a house, you have one tenant, you have one source of income, and attached to that is one mortgage or one set of bills. So whenever that tenant moves out, you've still got to pay that mortgage. You still got to pay that property tax and that insurance versus whenever you move to something like we love self-storage and I'm a self-storage investor. And, you know, the average complex probably has 400 units. So when one tenant moves out, I don't really care, to be honest with you. You know, I'm talking about I'm impacted like less than 1%, you know what I mean? So I still have that one mortgage attached to that property, but I've got 400 sources of income all covering that mortgage. So I think there's a lot less risk in commercial when it's played right. And, you know, if you buy a huge single tenant property, then you're playing the same ballgame where you have one source of income. But commercial allows you to be able to have a lot of different sources of income, which I think really, really lowers that risk level of not being able to pay your mortgage when someone moves out.
Right. Yeah, and you know, it seems like you've done a lot of analysis regarding whether to choose residential or commercial. You know, with commercial, you talk about how you can factor in vacancy rates and things like that. So
Well, kind of going to that, Ted, and the experience. I mean, whenever I first got started in this, again, my mentor, Robert Kiyosaki, through all of his content that he puts out and teachings that he puts out, is one of the first things that I read of his after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad was that he said, whenever you're young, you should work to learn, not work to earn. And I really took that to heart. And I went out and I found a mentor and offered to work for him for free. And it was a very, very good experience. It gets played a lot into why I've been able to make so much progress so quickly, is because whenever I went into his business, I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't even know how to calculate a mortgage. I didn't know, I had no idea anything, So, and it was very interesting because whenever I dove into his business and helped him out, whenever you say you work for free, you get thrown a lot of tasks, all the way from, hey, my kid's playing a soccer game. Can you drive up here and get this contract signed, to, hey, can you reorganize the keyboard? Our key system is a mess, to, hey, can you run this check over and, meet the accountant about this and this? What's so interesting is that he wasn't, a single track business model. He was doing wholesales, flips, single family rentals, multifamily rentals, up to commercial. So whenever I got thrown in from day one, I got to see the full spectrum of everything. And that's why I think that I had the confidence to be able to tell people, hey, here's why I think commercial investing is the best. And if commercial investing isn't the best, then you should go for long-term residential investing. Is because from day one of my real estate education, I got to see literally everything. So it's extremely powerful to read about things and watch videos on things, but it's a whole different ballgame to be in the position of actually doing it, seeing the intricacies of it, and seeing the ups and downs of each model.
Right. Yeah. And, I'm kind of in the same boat that you were, Hayden, when it comes to working to learn and having a right here. So
put your Venmo out link and Venmo link out, and we'll see if we can get some sympathy Venmos for you. How about that, Ted?
I'd actually be okay with that.
But hey, you raise a good point, because you get in there and you can read all the books you want, but actually getting in there and doing the work and learning from the ground floor up is a great experience. And so I commend both of you for doing this, because that is a terrific way to learn.
I mean, you better be paying attention, because if you're working for free and you're not learning and gaining skills, you're literally burning time. So yeah, I mean, I knew I had to make the most of it, because, I told myself when I was in college, I said, there's no way in the world that I'm going to go work for somebody else in a desk. It's just not who I am. And I knew that clock every day was ticking closer and closer to graduation, when, scholarships expired and I had to get out there and do it. So, every day I was like, what can I learn today that's going to help me in the future? So yeah, it's extremely powerful, as long as, you bring the right mindset to it. And if you are working for free, I tell people, you can't just work for free and show up and because if you try and put it on the mentor or whoever you're working for, it's a job for them just to give you tasks, to give you teaching. So you need to be bringing an extreme amount of value. You're not just there showing up. You're saying, what can I do to bring value to your life? What can I do to make your business better? So that was another extremely key piece of my success in making that, work to learn model beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really good advice. And, I've sort of followed that same motto as well. So, I wanted to go back to analyzing the value of properties.
Sure.
You spent one section of your book talking about it and, talking about underwriting each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that more people should do their due diligence in this area before deciding to purchase a property? And how often do you see people make the mistake of not properly underwriting each property they look at?
Every day. I mean, I've talked to people with several properties who have read my book and messaged me or got my phone number and, hey, I got 3 rentals, looking to make this step up. I'm like, that's awesome. And they want to help me, like, hey, how do I get into storage or whatever? And they're saying, that's awesome. Like, what do you look at? And I'm like, I just look at the numbers. Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, just send me your pro forma and, we'll take a look at it together and we'll go through. Well, what's a pro forma? And I'm like, like where you underwrite and you look at like how much money you're going to make. I'm like, do you have maybe something you could send me that you use? And I'm like, you said you have 3 rentals. You didn't look at how much money you're going to make? No, they just, 1% rule, and we rolled with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that people are out there not only spending their money, but spending their time on these things without even knowing, what am I getting myself into? You know what I mean? Because it's not, you're not just, it's the, if you're doing this project, you can't do that project. And if you're not using your underwriting and due diligence to compare which of these two is going to be better for me in the long run in terms of tax benefits, in terms of, because you can buy different property types, get different tax benefits. If you're not underwriting those, where are you going? If you don't even have a goal of what you're trying to get to, because you're just acting recklessly. So I see it all the time. And I mean, I'm sure you guys can attest to it too, is that underwriting, for me, it all starts with underwriting on an investment. And I think too many people go by gut feel. And I think gut feel is important. If you drive to a property and you're like, I don't know about this place, then even if the numbers make sense, maybe you back out, but you never go somewhere and check it out if the numbers don't make sense.
Right. Yeah. And your book mentions that. And Ken McElroy's book on the ABCs of real estate investing, he talks about how people become too emotionally attached to properties. Do their due diligence, and Ken said just stay out of that, just look at the numbers and make your decision from there.
Yeah, it's all about the numbers. And I think Robert said, whenever he first got started, is that his homework was to go out and look at 100 properties and make offers or compose offers on all of them. I'm not sure if he actually made official offers to all those properties, but I mean, if people take that advice, what are you doing? Just like checking out the paint and the trim and, I like this layout, you got to be looking at the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of good material in your book. You covered a lot of the different types of ways to properly invest in real estate by skipping the flip.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, what do you want your readers to do with all of the knowledge that's in your book?
I mean, I book on Amazon for $10. I mean, I'm sure, Garrett, you can attest to this. I ain't making much money off that $10. And I'm in the hole, a decent amount on this book. It cost a lot of money to write the book. And I knew that going in, and I never wrote this book as like, hey, I'm going to get rich off this book. I wrote this book because genuinely I wanted to help people. I mean, like I said, the whole reason I wrote the book is because people were coming to me, some weeks more than others, but I'd say several times a week, people would, reach out to me through social media or a friend or whatever, and, ask, hey, I want to get into real estate investing. I'm thinking about flipping this house, or I'm thinking about this. And I just cringed because I knew that they were going to spend 5 years to finally get to the point of what they should be doing. So I wrote the book simply put of like, I just want to help people. I just want to open people's eyes. I'm an abundant thinker, and I think that if I tell people how to invest in real estate, it's not going to hurt me. There's so much property and so much opportunity in this world that I can tell everybody everything I know and I'd be fine. So, if I can help other people build goodwill and help other people become wealthy or not pay taxes or, create enough secondary income in their life to quit their job or whatever it may be, then I'm just in it to help people, open their eyes to everything that's out there and available at your fingertips. You just have to grab it in terms of what you can do with this. And it's really not that difficult,
Well, when you put good information out there, you will benefit. It's not a financial thing, but if you goodwill and the education you put out there, helping other people, you will benefit in the long run.
Relationships too, I mean, one thing that's helped me a ton is, to be an author helps a lot. People reach out to you. And I mean, a lot of times they ask you for advice, and that's in its of itself like a liability. But again, if you can help people build the goodwill, I'm a firm believer it always comes back around. So for me, this was really a way to scale those conversations, to sit down and go through point by point. And, it's not the most in-depth. This doesn't tactically give you exactly how to figure out exactly how much depreciation you're going to have and blah, blah, blah. But I believe it covers every single base of what I would want to tell somebody that they should know about and research more at, say, a lunch, if I were having lunch with somebody to teach them about real estate. And that's essentially what the book is a way to scale that conversation and impact more people.
That's great.
Yeah. So there's a lot of overlap between your book, Skip the Flip, and Loopholes of Real Estate, which was published by Garrett. So since Hayden gave his reasons for publishing his book, what was the reason for publishing Loopholes of Real Estate?
Kind of like Hayden, to provide people with this information. I became a Rich Dad Advisor in 2000 and wrote the book on incorporating and using LLCs, which is general information, but there was a lot of information about real estate law that was going unnoticed or unwritten. And so Robert Kiyosaki asked me to write a book that covered these topics. And again, you try and write it in a very clear manner that demystifies the legal concepts. And it's been really satisfying. I get on the phone with people who've read the book, and they appreciate the fact that you made the effort to communicate this information to them. We're helping a lot of people, and that in and of itself is just a good, satisfying thing for me. So that's why I wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people really write books to get rich. I think that the only reason is really to write a book is to help other people. And I think your book it's probably the go-to legal book for real estate investors. So how long has it been out now?
I wrote this in 2007.
Uh-huh.
And so it's been out for a while. And no, it was 2005. So 15 years.
Yeah.
And it continually updated because the laws change, the LLC laws change, the mortgage laws have changed. So I'm constantly updating it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, and Ted can attest to this, people will call to set up LLCs, and we talk to people all over the country, all over the world. And it's just really satisfying that they've read the book and it's helped them move forward in their real estate investing. The law can be quite intimidating. And to have a manual that makes it less intimidating, great. And that's why I like your book, Skip the Flip, Hayden, because too many people think that is their way to go, is to buy that house and flip it. But as you mentioned, there's all sorts of tax consequences when you have a trade or business, which flipping houses is a trade or business. You've got payroll taxes, you don't have capital gains taxes. So thinking about owning real estate for the long term, I think, is really a valuable thing for people to understand.
The only way that you can kind of get out of those tax pitfalls of flipping houses if you're actually really bad at it, and it takes you longer than a year to flip it. Right? I tell people if you're going to flip houses, you might want to be a bad house flipper and not sell it in a year.
Right. Lower tax rates if you're bad.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that, Garrett, you and I talked last year on the cruise, and I think it was our first conversation. And I asked you a question about advice that I had gotten from my local attorney, and this was before you. And the question is that I had an LLC that owned property, and I was in the process of acquiring another one. And my attorney had told me, he'd given me legal advice that said, just throw that property in the same LLC you've already got. And I asked you that question, your eyes just get big. He's like, he told you what? So, I just want to ask you personally, like, how much bad advice do you think is getting thrown around out there about, from even certified, lawyers?
Well, that's a good question, Hayden. I think, there are a lot of great attorneys out there, but there are a lot of attorneys that may not specialize in asset protection, right? So they're a general business attorney. Mm-hmm. Maybe they do some family law, and maybe they do some, personal injury law. And so they don't really focus on the asset protection. And if you're not focused on it, you may think that putting 5 properties into one LLC is okay. Mm-hmm. But it's not, because if you get sued over one property, they can get the equity in the other 4. And that's why that was a valuable conversation that we had, because, there are attorneys out there that don't appreciate the subtleties of mm-hmm. protection. So it's not that they're bad attorneys, it's just that they're generalists. And you really need somebody who is a specialist when it comes to these types of issues.
Just like a doctor, right? I mean, I think that asset protection is like brain surgery. You don't want your general doctor that you go to for everything performing brain surgery on you, right?
Not me. No, I'm not doing that.
Cool.
Yeah, well, that was actually an interesting point to bring up about specializing in a certain area. But yeah, so there's a lot of commonalities, a lot of similarities between Loopholes of Real Estate and Skip the Flip. The nice thing about both of you is that you care more about helping people instead of, putting the book out there to generate money, generate passive income. You actually care about, the people who acquire this knowledge. So for those, obviously, there's many of you have read Loopholes of Real Estate, but for those who have not read it, I strongly recommend you guys purchase Skip the Flip, because There are a lot of good nuggets of information in here regarding how to properly invest in real estate. And with that being said, thank you for your time, Hayden. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Hey, always good to talk to you guys and catch up. I'm extremely bummed this whole Corona thing has us doing this virtually rather than, in person in the Bahamas. But, we may do, right?
Yeah.
Great talking to you, Hayden. Good luck with the book.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right.
See ya.
Take care.